Counter-terror police in UK are investigating a fire that broke out at Prime Minister Keir Starmer's North London home. Police say they had launched an investigation into a fire that caused damage outside Starmer's former family home.
But we've got more to do, and I'll be honest, because I'm always happy to talk about the things we're getting right, but I'll be honest, on this one, I don't think we are going fast enough. And I also know that even once we've rolled out those...
They would later insist the night announced itself, as if chaos had sent a warning first, but the truth is far thinner than that. It began with the kind of stillness cities forget to notice. London humming its routine midweek rhythm, footsteps brushing damp pavements, buses easing to their stops, shop fronts glowing faintly against the cold. Nothing in that evening hinted at what was coming. Even the sky felt uninterested, hanging low and colourless in that familiar way just before winter tightens its grip. No one could have known that a tiny, nearly invisible moment would knock the entire night off balance. It started with a wisp of smoke drifting upward near King's Cross, so faint it could easily have been mistaken for a trick of the streetlights. One passer-by slowed just long enough to notice, lifted his phone, filmed it without much thought, and walked on. That half-casual snippet, 30 seconds of nothing happening, became the spark that raced across screens everywhere. People watched before they understood. Then the sound tore through London's normal hum, glass hitting concrete, a dull thump that opened into a brief burst of orange. Some unknown, unseen, unnamed had thrown a bottle. And when it shattered, fire spread outward like something alive. Heads snapped around. More phones rose, live streams blinked into existence. The flames, as though reacting to the attention, climbed higher, stretching, twisting, feeding off the dry, cold air within minutes. The world reduced it all to sharp hashtags and clipped captions. London was burning, a police van caught next. Its sirens flashed uselessly inside a swelling cloud of smoke, red and blue flickering like a heartbeat being smothered. Officers edged back as the crowd pressed forward, driven by a chant erupting from every direction at once. Protect our children. The words rolled in waves, hitting the streets with uncanny synchronicity, as if hundreds of strangers had suddenly found the same pulse. Above it, helicopters carved frantic loops in the sky. The usual amber wash of streetlights drowned beneath the richer glow of spreading fire, turning familiar roads into a palette of anger and uprising. It looked staged. It felt scripted, except there was no director hiding behind the thick walls of number 10. The silence there was deliberate, heavy, as if the building itself were holding its breath. Curtains drawn, lights dim, aides moving like shadows inside rooms that now felt too small for the fear crowding them. No address to the public. No reassurance, just the cold flicker of emergency screens lighting anxious faces. When a security advisor finally muttered that London Bridge had been lost, no one corrected him. He wasn't naming a place, he was naming a collapse. Across the capital, neighbourhoods began to splinter. Shoreditch flared in bursts, Camden crackled with heat. Brixton throbbed under the march of thousands, moving almost in sync. Riot police formed lines that seemed solid from a distance, but trembled when seen up close, their shields catching sparks, their footing unsteady. They pushed forward, fell back, tried again, and broke. Through the haze, a new chant gathered strength. Whose nation? A beat of silence. Then the raw oars, not a plea, not a question, a declaration. Traditional broadcasters trailed hopelessly behind, still scrambling to stitch together tidy segments while the unfiltered truth spilled across countless live feeds. One officer, visor cracked, voice shredded, leaned into someone's shaking phone and rasped, "We're no longer in control." The recording cut abruptly. His final words hanging in the digital dark. Shops slammed down shutters. Makeshift barricades rose from bins, wooden boards, anything frightened hands could lift. Drones drifted above the capital, capturing scenes that felt unreal even to the people living them. Parliament soaked in red light. narrow lanes flickering with fire, the Thames reflecting a city pulling at its own seams. By the time crowds reached Parliament Square, the ground itself seemed to vibrate. Flares scraped red streaks across the sky as chants echoed off the stone buildings. Inside, ministers shouted over one another, their voices cracking not from conviction but from fear. Orders issued, withdrawn, rewritten, none of them sticking. When an aide burst in to report that Trafalgar Square had fallen to protesters, the room froze. The Prime Minister stared past the window, eyes dulled, and whispered something never meant to be heard. God help us all, and the unrest did not stop at London's borders. Birmingham woke to shouting, Manchester filled with pounding steps, Bristol, Leeds, Newcastle, the same rhythm everywhere, as though one restless heartbeat pulsed through the entire nation. Outside migrant centres, tempers flared, police stations barricaded themselves. Helicopters carved relentless circles above city skylines. One clip, filmed on a quiet residential street, captured a row of military veterans standing between two furious groups, silent, steady. "We served before," an older man murmured. "We'll stand again if we have to." That image stunned millions. The government's next move was to choke the flow of information. BBC broadcasts froze on distant shots. News channels stalled mid-sentence. Certain hashtags stopped refreshing without explanation. But silence only sharpened suspicion. People moved to other platforms, found loopholes, shared footage in encrypted spaces. The night refused to be buried. As the power grid faltered, parts of Westminster slid into darkness. Silhouettes pacing behind frosted glass like ghosts in a building, losing its grip on authority. Hours later, the Prime Minister finally appeared on screen, claiming everything was under control, but the country had already seen too much to believe even a syllable. The broadcast cut out halfway, not from a signal issue, but because no one bothered to keep watching. And then came the moment that etched itself into history. In Parliament Square, amid drifting smoke and the fading pulse of sirens, a lone police officer stepped forward, slow, deliberate. He set his shield down on the stone, the soft clink echoing far louder than any speech, and walked away. No statement, no gesture of defiance, just refusal. Then another officer followed, and another, until an entire row of shields lay abandoned, lined neatly like artifacts from a battle the government had already lost. Panic thickened behind closed doors. Phones rang unanswered. Advisors bickered. Ministers barked orders. No one had the manpower to fulfill. Armoured military vehicles rolled through London streets, some believing the sight alone would quiet the unrest. Instead, the crowd grew louder, angrier. The presence of soldiers stirred something older and deeper. People who had never joined a march in their lives found themselves swept into the swelling wave. In Brixton, a column of military vehicles halted. Young soldiers climbed out, barely older than the boys chanting in front of them. For a long, fragile moment, they didn't move. They didn't lift their weapons. They just stood there, uncertain of what role they were meant to play in a country arguing with itself. But by then, no citizen and no official could pretend the old order still held. The night had cracked it open, and dawn did nothing to hide the fracture.